Thank you. Minister, the school transport applications are presently being processed by Bus Éireann for the 2021-22 school year. But no one knows if there will be 50% capacity on second level buses or 100% capacity. This caused huge problems last September, but could cause absolute chaos this September for 13,000 post-primary concessionary pupils across the system, and we need clarity.
Minister.
Thank you, Deputy. School transport is a significant operation managed by Bus Éireann on behalf of the Department of Education. In the current school year, over 114,000 children, including 14,700 children with special educational needs, are transported on a daily basis to primary and post-primary schools throughout the country at a cost of over €224.7 million in 2020. The purpose of the scheme is having regard to available resources to support the transport to and from school of children who reside remote from their nearest school. All children who are eligible and who complete the application and payment process on time will be accommodated on the school transport in the 2021-22 school year where such services are in operation. Children who are not eligible for school transport may apply for transport on a concessionary basis where seats are available after all eligible applicants have been accommodated. The Department has engaged intensively with Bus Éireann in regard to the logistics for the safe operation of the school transport services for the 2020-21 school year. Based on public health advice, the Department provided for the school transport scheme services for the 21 school year to fully operate, but with additional measures and hygiene requirements in place, and with the rolling implementation of measures on post-primary services as required to provide physical distancing, using 50%, as you've outlined, of passenger capacity. My officials engage on a weekly basis with public health consultants from the HSE in relation to the safe operation of schools, including school transport. The requirement to implement additional measures on school transport services in the 21-22 school year will be dependent upon the prevailing public health advice at that time. And I would have to say it is difficult at this point where we stand now to make that projection forward, because it will be the most up-to-date advice available to us at that time. In addition, the Department is currently conducting a review of the school transport scheme. The review is being conducted to ensure that the school transport scheme is fit for purpose and that it serves students and their families adequately. And as I say, all consideration will be given to the public health advice that's available to us in advance of the return to school.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Naughten.
Minister, look, I accept that it's very hard to be definitive at the moment, because we are looking at what the public health advice would be. But your officials are engaging with Bus Éireann. I presume that that engagement does involve some scenario planning. And I want to know, potentially, if we are looking at a 50% reduction in capacity, what impact could that have on the 13,000 students that avail of concessionary school transport at the moment? Those families need clarity for September. So those families where students are starting in the junior cycle or in the senior cycle have the opportunity maybe to switch schools if there is clarity provided in relation to that. And the reality is that many parents manage childcare based on the availability and access to the school transport service. So we need clarity.
Minister to respond.
Thank you, Deputy. And again, I would have to be clear to you, Deputy, what the process is. And the process is that all children who are eligible and who complete the application and payment process on time will be accommodated in school transport services for the year 2021-2022 school year. Children who are not eligible for school transport may apply for transport on a concessionary basis, and where the seats are available, and even if that's at 50%, where the seats are available, they will be made available to those on a concessionary basis. And I'd have to be very clear that from where we stand now, everything we have done, as we look back on what we've achieved in education and as we look forward in terms of education, has been and will be on the basis of the public health advice that is made available to us. And the public health advice early, as we began the school year, advised that at second level, school transport would have to operate at a 50% capacity. Things are looking much more positive in the general in society in terms of how we're progressing. We would be hopeful that might not be required, but I cannot say, Deputy, it will be on the basis of the public health advice available, and we will operate on the basis of the public health advice available.
Thanks, Minister. Now, reading between the lines, what you're saying to me in plain English is that if it is the case, based on public health advice, while you hope that it won't happen, that it could happen, that the advice is that you operate at 50% capacity, and if that is the case, there are going to be 13,000 students left on the sides of our roads from the beginning of September because the capacity is not there operating at 50%. Now, Minister, can I ask you, what was the additional cost of operating the public health measures on the school transport service, the capacity measures for the current academic year? And how many of our buses achieved that 50% social or capacity requirement that was set out in relation to it? And finally, how many parents availed of the €5 and 10 cent a day alternative transport arrangements? You can provide those figures to me if you don't have them available. Thank you.
Minister, to conclude.
Thank you, Deputy, and appreciate your interest in this. And I'd have to say as well that I'm very clear in terms of school transport. We are currently conducting a review in terms of school transport, and I think that's important to acknowledge that as well. And it is my view and it is my intention that we will do all that we can to ensure that as wide an access as possible is provided in terms of eligibility for children and young people in terms of school transport, and that is part of the remit, we'll say, of the review currently. But I would have to be honest to you, Deputy, where public health advice pertains, public health advice will be followed. If that's a 50% capacity, well then it will be a 50% capacity. But even within that there is scope, and there was previously scope for accommodation for those who were concessionary. But no one that is eligible will be excluded in that remit. In terms of the achievement, over 98% of our buses have run at the 50% capacity at a cost in excess of between 87 and 135 million.
Thank you,
and I can revert you with any further information.